make some sense of this coaching search as well. I know a lot of people right now, they don't know what to think. Everybody's ready to be mad about a Kevin Ollie hire, it feels like. But this kind of news that, Monty Williams is still kind of out there waiting in the wings has people kind of waiting like, well, let's see. And I applaud the Pistons. We're going to get into it, though, man. Let me get this thing started.
Yeah, let's
We're going to
go.
get into it. What up, though, people? It's your boy, Brandon Dent, a.k.a. Detroit Kool-Aid, and you're rocking out with the Woodward Pistons podcast on the Woodward Sports Network. Jeff Fire Freddy is on the Morning Woodward. On the Morning Woodward show right now, we have some content planned. We're going to talk with him as well later about Cameron Whitmore of Villanova, and that's what we're going to talk about today after we get through a little bit of Pistons news. But for right now, we got Water Bottle Jeff to help me with this next part, and that is the drum roll to not just welcome today, but welcome back the legend. Let's get this thing going. Hey, yo, shout out to the legend, Detroit News, Rod Beard, brother. Hey, listen, Terry Foster filled in last week admirably. You were
I'm
missed,
sure it
man.
was admirably.
You were
I
missed,
know.
though. people like, where's Rod at, man? Yo, listen, you are a particular or a certain voice of reason amongst Piston fans, like almost like a uniting voice. And so I know that they missed it. Welcome back. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. And it was a legit reason to miss. I had a career day for some middle school kids. Actually, it was my middle school that I went to. They asked me to come back and
What's
talk for
up?
career day. So let the people know, let the kids know what opportunities there are in journalism.
That's what's up. I didn't know it was your own school too, and I told the people, I was like, look, if Rob wants to share next week, we'll let him share it. But he let me know a little bit of what he's doing, and it's pretty awesome. So Rod is a man of the people. I love it. I love it, man. As we get this thing started, but like we were talking, man, this coaching search, I applaud the Pistons. I know early on when the draft lottery went down and the news came out that the Pistons were going to make this full on effort to get Monty Williams if they got the number one pick. But now they don't have that, whatever. It was just like, wait. That's not even the MO of like what I've seen this regime and this organization kind of during this time do. If he's the number one guy, listen, okay, we have some guys we like here, but
Hmm.
go all out. And what I've seen between today and that first report after the draft lottery, I've seen the Pistons continue to go all out. And the reports have come out that at least that they have made their attempts and their overtures well known to Monty Williams that they would like for him to be their head coach. What's your take on all of this?
If you felt like Monty Williams was the number one guy and you threw a bag at him, you just showed him a bag of money and said, "Hey, this is." It's kind of like the old movies where you write a salary, you don't even talk about the number, you just write it on a napkin and pass it across the table. If they did something like that and offered him 10, I don't know what a comfortable number is that you feel
Mhm.
like if Casey was making 7, and 7 at the time when Casey got hired was a bag.
Yeah.
That was a little bit. So now if we're talking a few years later, is 10 too much? If you really think Monty is that guy, can you give him 4 and 10? 4 at 10 10 per? That seems reasonable, 4 or 5.
And that's
I
on the
see that.
owner's pocket, right?
Yeah, and so I think if you make a generous offer, a handsome offer, and he turns it down, then he turns it down. And maybe he's waiting to see if the smoke clears and what else is there. Because there were some whispers. There were, and I don't know how true they were, but there were whispers if Boston had gotten swept that Joe Mazzulla's out of that job. Maybe Monty was waiting on that job. You
Mm.
never know.
The voice of
So
reason, people.
so or Monty has a bag coming from the Phoenix Suns. He doesn't need money. If money is the issue, or money isn't one of the issues, it doesn't matter what you throw at him.
Right.
If you say 5 and 50 or 5 and 60, even he doesn't. He's got 20. What is? I think it's 20 coming back from Phoenix.
Yep.
So if money isn't the issue and he's waiting on the right fit, then maybe he's just saying the Pistons aren't the right fit, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're any less of a franchise, but he is a highly coveted coach in this coaching cycle. And if he's legit wants to spend some time with his family, then hey, let the man do what he wants to do. He doesn't want to come here now. It doesn't mean you're a horrible team and you're and so Pistons fans get this sort of mentality of
Speak on it, please.
why can't anything go right for us? You got Cade at the time. This is the worst. Here's the worst.
Welcome back, bro.
Cade isn't Victor. We got Cade, but that's like the consolation prize. We really wanted Victor. Bro, you got a number 1 pick in a draft lottery, and you got a transformative player who just came off surgery to fix everything that was wrong with him. And we don't even know what that looks like yet. But the man was averaging 27 and 7. And you're saying that's a consolation? Man, get out of here. Get out of here.
Bro, on a team full of like poor rebounders, he was finding a way to get 7 rebounds a game. And we were talking about it like, who's going to rebound? They were getting punked. Bro, when I tell you they miss Cade Cunningham in more ways than just what we think he can do scoring-wise or playmaking, he brought so much in the offensive and defensive rebounding. I noticed he actually crashes or dives on the offensive side of the court for rebounds. And on the defensive side of things, his hands are just pesky. He doesn't really get blown by. So he's not the most athletic or speedy defender, but he's very rangy. He covers space, and he's very, very like sound. Like his defense is principle sound. So it's like, yeah, I can jive with that, bro. Look, I was very slow-footed player. So I had to rely on a lot of, the principles, a lot of the different techniques. Shout out to Lucas, man. Look, Lucas has gone from intern to just content creator extraordinaire here at Woodward Sports. Shout out to him. Just walked by, just wanted to shout him out. I haven't done that much. But yeah, like back to Cade, man. Like I don't know. I believe that people are seriously underestimating the impact that Cade is going to have. And this is one nuance with Cade. And I've been wanting to address this. I know a lot of people don't remember the Grant Hill era. The thing that we wanted the Pistons to do and that everybody lamented was, you guys had an opportunity to kind of be a little bit more proactive with this ankle injury with Grant Hill. You guys, even though, the injury was sustained, the medical process to kind of get him back to health, it wasn't really the best. Some people blame the medical staff. You got people who blame Fila and everything in between. What the Pistons did with Cade, because I keep seeing people say he's injury prone. This was a proactive move to say, you know what? We actually want to see how you can play with 2 legs. This wasn't a situation where he got injured, bro. Cade was asking to go. I talked directly to his brother. Cade wanted to play the next night. He was pissed off at the 4-point game in Boston. He was like, can I please play again? Like, he was ready to go. He was like, I feel like I normally feel, but I know that if I get the surgery, I can be better.
Injury prone means, let me think of somebody who is injury prone. Because ankles are going to happen. You're gonna sprain an ankle, and like Reggie Jackson had a grade 3 sprain. And at the end of that year, that kind of derailed, or not the end, that was the beginning of that year that kind of derailed that year that people thought they were going to be really, really good. And he was out for like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So if you continuously have ankle injuries, or this knee keeps bothering you, this is a shin issue with Cade that went back to high school. So if this dates back some years, and now they're fixing this thing, you don't know. You can have very high hopes of what next year is going to look like. And this isn't, I don't want to pick on anybody. This isn't your 15th man getting a surgery and you're hoping for this dramatic increase year over year. This is probably your best player who has been limited by this thing even a little bit. And if he was 90, 95%, and this gets him to 100%, yes, you take it. Yes, you take it. What?
Bro, you got stars out there singing his praises. You take the extra 5%. You take the 10%. At that level, you take those margins. When you're talking about stars, generally people are talking about splitting hairs, man. I saw people talking and comparing different players like Wade and LeBron and some of these guys. Look, bro, I'm taking the 5%. And I'm taking the corrective surgeries. I'm taking anything that can make sure that his actual career and his actual prime can be played here in Detroit that is most healthy. That's what I want to do. And we don't get to his prime in Detroit, because Terry Foster is like, look, no matter how much he loves Detroit, if they are not in a position to win after by a certain contract time, there's a clock ticking. He's going to have to make a business decision.
Right. And I could see if this was if he had been struggling and there wasn't enough there to say, maybe he's a bust. There's nobody in their right mind that would say that Cade is a bust. It is the last that we saw is that he's 20 points. So, and I'm not even going to say bust. It would be different if this was James Wiseman who had injury issues.
Exactly.
And
that's a great comparison, actually.
And then you come back and say, I wonder what he kind of is, because we don't have enough data to say this is what he is, because he's been injured for most of his career. Yes, Cade has been injured, but did you have enough in his rookie year to say what he is? Most years he could probably be rookie of the year. Was there enough in last year, in the beginning of that year, to say that this dude is going to be really good? Yeah, I'm going to say so. So taking all of the data and taking the emotion out of it, look at the numbers, look at the eye test, look at the MOAD index, my own eye test. That's the MOAD index. You can see Cade is going to be a star in this league when he's healthy. Just relax, chill.
Relax.
Don't.
It's a shin surgery. Rod, we got brothers going out here, man, getting straight up leg extension surgery and being completely 100. I'm talking about going out there and just winning at life. And we got people out here really, really worried about Cade Cunningham getting corrective surgery. Not he got an injury in the season. Not he got an injury last season. Not he's putting so much stress at an NBA workload. Like, his body largely is holding up. And generally, when you have an injury like that, you would generally see other injuries. You're not seeing that necessarily with Cade Cunningham. Like you said, he's not an injury-prone player. He's a guy going out there and getting corrective surgeries. And when he was on the court during his rookie season, he was one of the most clutch players, like we always say. This is, if we want to talk about, the Moet, yeah, he passes it for me. And then we talk about the stats of it all, he's passing that as well. It's like we don't even have to rely on what we think we see. Like with Jay and Ivy, I think we're still trying to figure out, okay, which way is he going to bounce in year two? With Cade, it's just like that guy's a star, and other guys are saying it too. And they were saying it even before we were comfortable with saying it in his rookie year. And sheesh, man, that guy goes, and I can't wait to see him back. I can't wait. I love the Cade tangent. The Cade zone is always going to pop up, and I love it, man. With Jay and Ivy, I'm hoping that his year 1 to year 2 jump is something as kind of light bulb on as Cade Cunningham said it was for him. And I think that also makes a difference with saying, you know what, Cade understands this. Let him just get kind of the surgery and let him go. When I saw out of Ivy kind of answering those questions that we had during the draft, when we were draft profiling him, wondering like, can he, play make? Can he 3-point shoot? Can he get into the mid range? And then we saw him answer it. It honestly, it kind of cemented things for me. I want him to go out there and not just settle for being a second player, a second fiddle. Go out there and act as if you guys are the Heatles. You just got drafted to the same team rather than having to find your way there. Like, I saw something there. I just, the difference between he and Cade is just with Cade, after what I saw and after it kind of did affect winning, it was just like, no, that is the guy. That's the guy. But Jaden Ivey didn't necessarily have as much around him during the second half of his run. So it's going to be interesting to see, man. It's going to be interesting.
But that's the and maybe I'm an eternal optimist, and I'm going to say I'm excited to see what Ivy Cade looks like. Plus Duren, you didn't give them a mobile 7-foot big. Neither one of them really played with him in the role that they're going to play next year. So if you take Ivy off the ball, or maybe better yet, even put him on the ball, and you have Cade as the guy in the corner shooting, you flip-flop those two, and you got that big rim running.
Bro, I want those summer league plays too. That when you have all three of them, you do have this ability to have Duren dump the ball into Duren and toss up a lob to Jaden Ivey. The reason why it doesn't necessarily work without Cade is because the defense is not staying glued to Killian Hayes. The defense will stay honest to Cade. So one backdoor cut, one kind of cut this way, and then backdoor for Jaden Ivey. He's open. That's what we saw in the first play in Summer League. The first play out of Summer League, we saw that. And they did run that with Killian, Duren, and Ivy. And I was just like, you know what? The possibilities. If we can get those guys on the court together, yeah. I know we talk a lot about this backcourt, but Duren, to me, in terms of being a lob threat and a defensive powerhouse, honestly, like, because we talked about the impact Marvin Bagley made on the offensive side. We're talking about someone who I think has an opportunity to have a little bit more of a explosive impact on offense while having a better impact on defense than Marvin Bagley. That's going to be awesome to me.
And with, I think this lineup can do some things. I mean, it's at the point now that whoever they draft may not even start. Your number 5 pick in the draft may probably, I'm going to say probably won't start. And I feel good about that. He probably won't start.
There you go. I was going to ask you, am I wrong for kind of feeling like that's the way I want it? Not that I want the 5th pick to not be good, but that would mean that Troy went crazy in the offseason.
No, even still, if you're going Cade, Ivy, Bojan, Stu, and Duren,
you're right.
Your number 5 pick isn't starting. And he doesn't have to. That's how you know that the roster now is where you want it to be. Because last year it was very much, you get Ivy, he's starting. He's sliding right into there. You're doing a need-based draft. Now you know you need some help at the 3, but you don't have to slot him in there immediately and say he has to play. If you did, you could put Bojan at the 4, but nobody really wants that. Because you got that you got that log jam of big men, and you've got to clear it up some. So I think Stu is a logical 4, and you play him with Duren. So again, this is for the Troy people who Troy hasn't done anything. If your number 5 pick in the draft is not starting, you have enough talent. You have accumulated significant talent on the roster where the only let me think about this. Would Scoot start? Would Brandon Miller start?
I think that based on need, there's a better opportunity for him to start.
Where? Are you starting Brandon Miller at the 4 or the 3?
Goodness gracious. I think that Bojan is the only player, and I don't want to start Brandon Miller at the 4. It'll have to be at the 3. It would have to be at the 3. Like, yeah.
And so what are you doing with Bojan at that point? You're moving Bojan to the 4, and you're creating a bigger log jam with these big men. So then Troy would have to work to do something.
Wow, it's cooking, y'all.
So I'm saying, even the only way that you're kind of cracking the starting lineup is if you had gotten Vic. That was the only real way that you were going to draft somebody who was going to supplant somebody in that starting lineup.
We talked about that.
And you were going to have to make some trades at some point, and you might still have to make some trades to clear up some space for whoever you end up drafting, if you end up drafting somebody. Let me throw that out there too. That unless you do some type of substantial improvement on this roster, why are you drafting at number 5? Because you're essentially, from what we just said, you're drafting a backup immediately. Unless you say you're trading Bojan and you're getting some value for Bojan and you're going to get whatever else. If you believe in Ivy and Cade, your backcourt is set. Maybe you're getting a backup too. But if you're keeping your bench from last year, I mean, there's a lot that needs to be figured out. This team didn't set the world on fire, so I'm not saying that there's no way that you change the starting lineup. But I'm saying if you believe in these pieces that you have and you're going to let them develop, you got to water these pieces and give them some space to grow when they're all together. But when they're all together, is Bojan going to look different with Cade? Yes. Is Ivy going to look different with Cade? Yes. All of these cats. You've said it throughout this entire time. Cade is the straw that stirs this drink. Yeah. But with Cade back, this is going to look entirely different. And you can't really bust up this starting lineup until you know what that really is. And you're not going to know that until early in the season. So unless you get some kind of roster changing deal, either in the draft or some mega addition in free agency, you have what you have already. You already have it. Even if you went out and you got Jeremy Grant, you still need to create some space somewhere. So I'm going to say one of them big men somewhere is going to be has to move. He has to, because you don't have any roster space to add anybody else.
Yeah. You are cooking, because I said this as well with Terry. I was like, you know what? Let me slow down, because one of the things that I know Rod has continued to refrain, and I think that this is the theme of this offseason, we don't know what this team looks like. Bojan was signed to complement Cade Cunningham. He wasn't brought here to be like anything else other than, honestly, a complementary piece to what we all knew Cade needed. We kept talking about how the offense would bog down, or there was like people who were not hitting shots or threes off of the gravity he was creating, and we needed more of that around him. We didn't really get a look at that. We didn't get a look at that the way it was supposed to. We couldn't get a look at it with the pick and roll. Everyone knew. Crash Bojan and Cade. Everyone knew. Every defense knew that. And that's how they're going to play it next year. Unless you have your pick and rolls. They can't just do that if it's Cade pick and roll with Duren. Ivy's cutting back door. Duren's rolling in the middle. Bojan's wide open. No matter what the defense is, if you say don't leave Bojan, then Cade's wide open in the mid-range. If you say don't leave Cade, Duren is dunking on you or throwing the lob to Ivy. In a perfect world, it's like, yeah, those players matter. And when you got like a Tasmanian devil like Stu just kind of bouncing around,
yeah,
you're right. Like the best defensive lineup was Stu and Duren. We didn't really get to see that. And we called that out on the show early. We started asking those questions in the press conference early. And Casey was just effectively like, I can't play them together because there are only two effective bigs. And if one of them gets into foul trouble, bro, they were losing rebounding battles like 62-40. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if we don't got one of those guys? One of those guys when we only have two of them? So it's like, man, I don't want to overestimate it, but those guys, they do deserve a chance to play together.
But see, here's the deal: is certainly this is an expiring deal for Bojan, so you got to figure out what you're doing there. So even if you go get Jeremy Grant, then you're almost certainly trying to flip off Bojan as well and to bring something else in. So now your cap space is an asset to get you a piece that you need, and Bojan can get you something else, and maybe you can pair up some and conjure a trade that kind of makes that work.
Yep.
So on one hand, if you stand pat with what you got your starting lineup. On the other hand, you could really flip this roster depending on what Troy wants to do with free agency and with trades and with whatever else, because it's not a robust free agent market. You're not going to go out there and get a franchise changing player unless you've got the other pieces in place to make it work. Let's talk coach, because I gotta run in a few.
Yep. Oh boy. Did you want to get into Cam, or you want to talk about these coaches?
Let's go coaches first. We'll have time on Cam. We still got a couple weeks on Cam.
So with the coaches, man, all right, because I know we already covered Monty. With Kevin Ollie and Charles Lee, these are effectively the two names that I'm hearing still attached to the Pistons as it relates to the ones that Troy loves. Now, people are saying that Troy wants Kevin Ollie and that the organization wants Charles Lee. I don't claim to have any inside information. These are just kind of some of the reports that are coming out. I actually like both candidates. I feel like Charles Lee is something like a mix of Kevin Ollie and what Jaron Collins is. But something just, I don't know, man. There's something Eric Spoelstra like about Kevin Ollie to me. Eric Spoelstra came from out of nowhere. He had, none of the head coaching experience or even coaching experience. I don't even know if he had like any player development in his background. I know that he was doing video work, and so I don't know. Like, we say trust Troy. He's saying like, no, like if he's saying that this is the guy, what's the drawback on a Kevin Ollie? Like I don't know. I do kind of lean towards Charles, but I'm not down on a Kevin Ali.
Yeah, and all things being equal, you say trust Troy, and if that's your basketball guy, then you let him make the decisions. And if something goes wrong, then he has to wear that.
Yeah.
And that we've done that with the roster, we've done that with the draft. He's kind of worn the Killian thing and just said, hey, that just didn't work out the way we had expected. But look at the rest of that draft. Look at the other two pieces. So the people that want to say that he didn't do a good job on Killian will not also give him the credit for the other two picks in that first round. The people who say that Cade was a gimme at number one will not give him the credit for Jalen Duren for trading into the draft to get Jalen Duren. So
fucking Isaiah Livers in that Cade Cunningham draft is so underrated to me.
Right. So you have to either trust him or you don't. And if you say he's on the hot seat, then you should want him to make this decision, to make that, hey, this is the make or break. Because if the reports are true, and the reports are kind of what you said, is that that Troy wants Ali and the other people in the front office want Lee. If you go with what the other people in the front office want, then it works. You're going to give the credit to Troy. At the end of the day, you're going to say Troy made the right hire or they made the right hire. Yeah. If Troy's guy doesn't work, then that's on Troy. And then you can start having those conversations that, hey, this roster doesn't fit, the coach didn't work, blah, 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 blah. But he also went that additional time with Dwayne when that wasn't his guy. But he said, this is the situation that we want. This is a coach. This is a development team that we want to maintain. So if you were making those decisions and Troy didn't like Dwayne, then he would have gotten rid of him in the beginning. Was Dwayne an impediment to anything, to the growth or development of this program? No.
He was a plus to the growth and development.
Don't say that too loud because people are going to start hitting you in the comments that you're a Dwayne supporter and a Dwayne lover, but that's the reality of it. That's exactly what it is. And you can't deny that and say that, well, did he lose the locker room? No, he didn't lose the locker room. Come on, man. And the people who say that are mostly the people who are not in the locker room, who are not talking to players after the game. Somebody who's checked out will not give you the answers. They're giving you the same stuff that Dwayne just said in the locker room, which lets you know the message is getting across. If you tuned it out and you weren't paying attention, you wouldn't be able to say anything that he said. And I've seen that happen, so I know what it looks like. I've seen it.
It's so true, man. They say what he says, and it's just like, yo, at least they're in sync. At least they're in unison. At least they are listening to whatever he's saying, and they understand this is the program's message. And it's like, if we're listening, this is what the organization has been saying all along. It's a program that we're not hiring a new coach for necessarily a new voice. That Dwayne Casey, he was the voice that we wanted him to be. We're just having somebody else that can bring in some different wrinkles, some different ideas. And Dwayne Casey's ideas and his minds are still going to be here. Still going to be here. You know, I know they're at the
right. So if Dwayne was such an impediment, why did they keep him to be in the front office? If he was that bad, they would have just scratched out a check and said, "Peace, we out." I mean, it's been real, but we gotta go in a different direction. The fact that he's stuck around tells you he's not an impediment. What is wrong with people? What is wrong with people? Why don't they see things in front of them and then they see what they want to see and it doesn't match up with reality?
Bro, it's like that Miggy clip on Memorial Day. It's like he's talking to his homie like, what are you talking about? Bro, you don't know how to count. Like, I don't know. But as it relates to Kevin Ali, as it relates to Charles Lee, knowing that we have, in my opinion, 2+ coaches sitting in the organization in the front offices right now, that makes it so much more comfortable for me. If we do go with a coach without NBA head coaching experience, like people are claiming we need a coach with NBA head coaching experience. It's like we have 2 of them literally in organization. We really do. And one of them was a fantabulous coach in college. So if you're talking about what we need for our young players, listen, who did Cade Cunningham note as it relates to getting his 3-point shot back together? John Beeline.
Don't say that too
Who did
loud
Jaden
because
Ivey note for the defense? John Beeline. Who did Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart note for belief in them? James Wiseman, Dwayne Casey. They said his voice, man. They continue to speak to his voice being something that was needed for them during some really, really, really tough times. It's not like you come in and you plan for injuries. It's not like you come in and you plan for your star to be out. You know, it's not like you plan for any of these things. It's not like Jaden Ivey knew, I'm going to be the lead guard this year. He thought, and we all thought, that having Cade Cunningham here was going to make his maturation in his rookie season that much easier. No surprise. He had no Cade, no pick and roll options. He had really no bigs. He is just go out there and play, right? Because we've seen that. We've seen these draft picks come into this organization. Bro, we couldn't handle when we were only picking one draft pick in the first round. We've seen it. I've said it before, bro. Who would Stanley Johnson be in this regime? Who would Andre Drummond be in this regime? It's just something different to think about. These guys are handling 2 and 3 draft picks per round. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. And it makes me comfortable with the draft picks, with the coaches they can get, and with the free agents. I believe that they have a formidable basketball staff. Arn Tellem was one of the best connectors with NBA talent, I think, in history, man. Like, is there anyone who has a better kind of persona or resume? I think that there are some agencies that can kind of compare, but he's a legend in this thing. I don't think people really understand the pedigree that the Detroit Pistons organization has from a basketball standpoint right now in the front office.
Let me ask you this way: Is Mark Daigneault from OKC some type of coaching wizard or genius?
Mm-mm.
No, they just had a bunch of talent and they put it together and it came together at the right time. You know what they did? They were patient and they waited and they did it without their number one pick. Chet didn't even play. Chet didn't play one game.
Jeez.
One game. And Chet's coming back to that lineup with Shea.
And Lou Dortz. I like Lou and Shea, man.
So is OKC some type of magic kind of, they put it together? Yeah, they put it was time. They gave it time and they were patient. Just be that. And if it doesn't work this year, then I don't know what the draft looks like next year, but you're not trying for the draft. This should be it. This should be the year. This is go time right now.
Yeah.
And just believe in that. And whatever coach you end up getting, it's not necessarily about the coach, because Dwayne Casey still has a voice in what goes. He's not going to be coaching. He's not going to be on a bench, but he's going to be in the atmosphere and in the front office doing stuff and helping them.
Yep.
So chill, relax. It's going to be okay. You didn't get the number one pick, but you know who didn't get the number one pick? The other 13 teams that were in the lottery. They didn't get the number one pick either. And it's okay.
But you know what? How many of those other teams are like, we don't know if we trust our GM? Like, think about it. I trust our GM's assessments. I trust what he's going to do. I do. Especially with the players that are here. I really do. And you know what was interesting about the Thompson twins? It's listening to them talk. Listening to their mentality and understanding whose tutelage they've been under makes you just think, man, I kind of want to hear this Kevin Ollie guy out. The disrespect towards him, like he already had a that kind of future coach persona placed on him when he was an NBA player. I know that a lot of people might not remember him. He was considered the professional guy. Like the pictures of him versus like Allen Iverson when they played together was just kind of like funny because they were polar opposites, but still with similar vibes. He just carried himself differently. And guys like him, Eric Snow, kind of from that Philadelphia line, like people just kind of knew this is who those guys were. Aaron McKee, they were kind of cerebral, IQ, high professional type players. So it's just like, I believe he has the right pedigree. People have to get their start somewhere. If Troy's really believing in him like this, and these players like Amin and Asar was just like, bro, 3. If it's a top 3 draft, then I'm in that top 3. but trust me, it's more than 3 of us in this.
Yeah.
And then I saw the workouts with them boys. I'm like, ooh, like, you know what? They're working still. They're training still. People keep talking about stats and how they looked months ago. I'm looking at workout footage today, and I get it's just in the gym, but they look way more crispy, way more athletic, way more shifty, a little bit better at almost everything that people are trying to detract. Where are they training at, though? Over at Overtime Elite with Kevin Ali and his staff. Look, we can't people sitting there clamoring for these guys, right? And they literally bucked the system to go to train underneath this guy who is the head of coaches and player development. So I'm gonna trust Troy.
Yeah, and I think that's the right tack to take is that if leave it in Troy's hands. And if it's wrong, then it's wrong. But if it's right, give that man the credit. And if you look at his resume, and people can glean from this what they want, has he gotten more things right or wrong?
Right.
And if you think that he's gotten a bunch of stuff right, trust Troy. If you think that he's gotten a bunch of stuff wrong and most of his stuff wrong, then I mean, whatever. That's on you.
Now look, Rod, I want to put on my glasses here before we get into this last part and close up. We're gonna talk about Cameron Whitmore of Villanova.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, guys, this is now the nerdy part, the educational part, where we start to talk about stats and usage and advanced metrics and everything. Just a little bit here. 6'7", 232-pound Cameron Whitmore. Steve from Resball Pod, who's helping us with a lot of draft content on the channel. You guys might know him. Definitely drop a Steve in the comments. He's made a lot of interesting notes about him and his pedigree. One of the more interesting ones is that he has been mentored by Carmelo Anthony. You can kind of see that in his game. You can kind of see in his game, and I like it. I like it's a little bit of dog in him. Now, I know that he played in the America's UAT team. He was the MVP, and they won the title. Let me see here. His stats: 12.5 points per game, 5.3 rebounds per game, 0.7 assists per game. We're going to talk about that, though, because that was a little low for me. 1.4 steals per game, though, and only 1.6 turnovers per game. His usage was at 25.6%, so he had the ball a lot. 47.8% field goal percentage, 34% on 3 on 4.2 attempts, and a low free throw rate, man, of only 25%. That's something I'm just like, all right, with the type of player he is, getting to the rim, I believe just kind of quickly that he's an elite finisher at the rim and elite in transition. I'm trying to figure out why his free throw rate is so low. But everything else to me screams that this guy has a little bit more to his ceiling that can actually be, uncovered. People are making a lot about his assists. They're saying, like, can he play make? And there's a lot of the things that we talked about with Jaden Ivey. With Cameron Whitmore, you take the good, a lot of the good. And this man, like I said, in transition, in the half court as it relates to in the paint and at the rim, you're not stopping him. The way he can contort and get in there and do that, I'm all for it. We don't have anybody else like that other than maybe Jaden Ivey. And I think that Cameron Whitmore is a little bit better at it than Jaden Ivey, a little bit bigger as well. Explosive with space, and he's a rebounder. We talked about, Cade Cunningham with the 6 and the 7 rebounds again. He's a guy that gets in there and he's very, very strong. And I love his 3-point percentage, 36%, but the 40% on the catch and shoot. I really, really like it. But I think that some of his stats were a little bit skewed as it relates to his playmaking because Villanova's style of offense, when I just kind of sat down and got into a lot of it, all those guys do when the ball hits his hands is stand. When the ball's not in his hands is when you see someone cutting and it's usually hit him. I didn't see too many backdoor cuts, pick and roll offense, cutting. It almost seemed like to just be a 5-out ISO offense. Whoever, if he has the ball, I saw everybody else on his team doing this. And when he passed it to him, it wasn't like they were hitting. So I'm just sitting there like, okay, this was a position where 25% usage. He wasn't trying or even asked to play make, and nobody. He would dribble drive, get around his man. Another defender would pop up, bro. And the other guy wouldn't even cut back door. I'm like, come on. Like the basketball in me was just like, cut. Like do something. Like I want to push the guy.
So let me tell you this. When you look at Villanova's roster, what do we know Villanova to be? traditionally under Jay Wright when he was there.
What is
There
it?
is
Those NBA ready guys.
NBA ready, senior driven teams, and that's a culture that's instilled there. So when you look at the 12.5 points, that's fourth on the team. Fourth.
Mm.
Who led the team in scoring? 3 seniors. So there might be a little bit of deference in that. It's hard for a freshman at Nova to kind of come in and take over because you have these guys who have been there, who understand the system, and he's going to have to make his way. And Sadiq used to say the same thing too, is when he first got to Nova, you just got to kind of sit back and play the background. That's some of his personality, but we got to see with Cam if it's sort of the same thing. But their seniors, their tallest guy on the roster is 6'9". So to your point, there is no guy in the middle eating up space. You're going to play 5 out if you don't
5
have
out. Yeah.
if you don't have a big dominant kind of 6'10", 7-foot sort of guy. So that's the other piece of that. And they've got rebounders that he didn't need to rebound, even at 6'7". So a lot of this is circumstantial when you look at some of these guys and just looking by the stats. And I didn't see as many full games of Villanova stuff, but you take what you know in talking to some of these guys and what that culture is like. And the culture is going to dictate a lot of that stuff. You're just not going to come in on a senior-laden roster as a freshman and as a hot shot and come in and take the ball from them. They do what they do. The system is the system. And coming off of Jay Wright retiring, then it is that sort of, well, we got to implement new stuff and figure out some different things. So it's not going to be what it was. But that man is not going to come in there and take the ball and do Cade at Okie State and just do whatever he wants to do. That's just not going to happen.
I knew you would have an answer for it because I was looking through it, and I like to be able to be, parts of how this person can fit in our roster, as well as, hey, let's answer some of these questions like we did last year. What was going to, shout out to Jeff Freddy, that what was he asked to do? That was the phrase that I think the theme of last year's draft coverage. And it's interesting the way that you pulled that out there. I'm so glad that you were able to kind of succinctly lay it out there. These are the reasons why, so that we don't just sit back and say, oh, he can't play make. Well, when you kind of go on and you look at their offense, just like we were able to do with Jaden Ivey, it was just so different of an offense. It was throw the ball inside for Jaden Ivey and then throw the ball back out. That's how it was, and it didn't really create a lot of lanes from the drive. It did not create a lot of lanes for him to be able to honestly get a clean look at a 3, because people don't really, for better or worse, did not double team or really respect the bigs on his squad like that. So they stuck to him. You know what I mean? And that was the thing that honestly created the narrative. So when we kind of dive into it, I'm glad that we're able to kind of look at it and say, well, what are the players on this team looking like? What are their heights? What are the conditions and the factors that he was facing? Because a prospect is not just his stats. He's also the condition in terms of college that he's placed in. And that's why sometimes we see these guys go from middling scoring, middling stats to boom, all of a sudden, yo, man, this guy like Jaren Jackson Jr., we knew he was in the right situation. It didn't matter what his stats were. Draft him. And that's when I look at Cam Whitmore, I kind of get that sense as well, that he's one of those guys who, like you stated, I'm glad you put it the way you did. There were some circumstances that kind of dictated what his stats were going to be. He probably could have scored more if he was a upperclassman. Those stats would have probably been crazy. And with his rebounding, you're right. He didn't have to have crazy numbers, but when you see him mixing it up, he's just tough. When you talk about those guys that get that dog in them, I like what I see from Cam Whitmore. He's scrappy. He kind of reminds me, people say Sadiq Bey, and I'm like, you guys are being so lazy. Yeah, you got to give Sadiq Bey, Jaden Ivey's kind of athleticism, you know what I mean, prowess and footwork, some of the things that we were talking about. I like Sadiq Bey. Cameron Whitmore is a little bit different on offense and on defense, which is where I'm going to get now.
And let me throw this in there too.
Yeah,
Sadiq freshman year, 8.2 points, 5.1 rebounds, and he shot 37% from 3. So our freshmen going in Villanova and lighting the place on fire, that doesn't happen at Nova. It's not. So don't look at the stats and draw any kind of conclusion from that at all.
So you're telling me that Cam Whitmore could be a special player then?
Could be.
And put my glasses on.
And Sadiq was on a different team for Nova. But I think those things kind of hold true. Is that because Eric Pascal's on this team, Phil Booth, so they had Cole Sweet, yeah. And Sadiq was the fourth leading scorer on his team. That's all I got for you.
I like it. I like it, man. I like
That's
it.
all
And
I got
I
for
love
you.
his kind of power with the dunking. 2 hands,
Yep.
1 hand. He gets it.
Mhm.
Defensively, man, shout out Steve again at Resball Pod. He says that he's a point of take defender for Villanova. Like he has the size to really play the wing, but they had him actually being like the lead defender, going up top and defending the perimeter, and honestly making a difference because his hands are so fast. We talked about that 1.6 steals per game. For his size and his position, that's really, really good. And it's similar to how Cade does it as well, only he's much more flight of foot. He can shift a lot faster. He can get to spots better. And as a one-on-one defender, he's really good at being able to defend and on the shot, being able to defend with his
Body up.
chest up in a guy.
Yep.
And I'm
Yep.
like, ooh, I like it without fouling too. That's very, very crucial without fouling. And so on defense, I like it from that standpoint. And though I believe Cam Whitmore is a very versatile defender, he can defend multiple positions. I don't think that he's a very good switch defender.
Mhm.
Like in the pick and roll is where I think if you're going to say there's a weakness on defense, it's probably that. And I think that that's something that can get shored up a lot better with technique, teaching, film sessions. I don't think that it's something that he's incapable of figuring out because he has all the other defensive principles down. That was 1 year in college, that we have footage on. And he showed to get a little bit better at it as the season went on. But that's probably the only thing as it relates to his defense that I would like, I kind of want to see a little bit more because I like all of the other aspects of what he is as a defender. Obviously, he needs to get a little bit better, put some polish on there, but I like him, man. Was
Yeah,
there
and
anything, at least for you, that at least from a defensive or even offensive standpoint, that you wanted to highlight about Cam Whitmore?
no, I think that the athleticism is there, and if you add another athletic wing to this roster, I think you could start to see some things take off, and it could be just a fun watch with him. So I like that part of it. And for those who keep track of such things, he's from Maryland. He went to DeMatha, so we know what the history of Troy Weaver and Maryland players, DeMatha players, is. So there's that.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep,
Good,
that's
man.
all I got for you, bro.
That's it. My 3 final takes. He's a player that doesn't waste time and gets to his spots fast. Strong handle to set up his drive. And he's a guy that if he winds up in the corner 3, he's not going to disappoint. He's not going to disappoint.
There you
All
go.
right. Does that close our Cam Whitmore session? I can take
That's
these
it.
off now?
That's
I
it.
can
We're
take these
good.
off?
Take mine off too.
That's right. Well, look, man, this was fun. I'm grateful and glad to have you back. I think we covered a lot this morning. And you, as always, man, you brought some perspectives into this from the draft, the coach, our offseason outlook, and Troy Weaver. I a lot of different perspectives. I'm hoping the people loved it as well. Definitely, guys, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, put a drum roll in the comments right now because you guys already know what time it is. Thank you guys for rocking out for the Woodward Pistons podcast, man. I am your boy Brandon Dent, aka Detroit Kool-Aid. And pretty soon here, I'm counting down the time. Mr. I Afraid is gonna be walking into the studio so we can get some content going as well. So definitely, guys, check out the Morning Woodward show and say what's up to him as well as Jeff and Gentry. But let's get this drum roll going. Hey, yo! Shout out to the legend Detroit News, Rod Beard, brother, as always. Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll do it again next week.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.